Well, it's Wednesday morning here in Mexico and we're just 2 days away from the semi-finals getting underway in the 2023 Rugby World Cup in France, and two big games coming up this weekend at the Stade de France in Paris, of course. And in the last couple of videos I've talked about the All Blacks and maybe complacency being an issue there. I've also talked about England and their chances, and in this video today I'm going to talk about the mighty South African Springboks, so stay tuned. G'day and welcome to Inside Rugby. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mark. I'm a Kiwi rugby fan living here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. I've been making all sorts of videos about the Rugby World Cup as it's gone on as a tournament, and today I'm going to be talking about the Lion Kings, yes, the South African rugby team, and they'll be getting ready for their clash against England, which is being played as semi-final number 2 on Saturday night at the Stade de France in Paris. And what an exciting prospect that is going to be. A lot of people are not giving England any chance at all in this game. And I think if we look at the World Cricket Cup yesterday, we saw the Netherlands beating South Africa, and who would have expected that? So, as I said in my video yesterday, never ever underestimate what can happen in professional sport, because when you're least expecting it, something major happens. Now, I'm not suggesting for a minute that South Africa is going to get beaten, but I think it's going to be a very interesting game, in particular the strategies that are going to be used in this game. So in this video I just want to talk about that and some possible team selections as well. But first, before I get on to all that, let's go back and have a quick chat about that amazing game between South Africa and France. What an absolute thriller it was. And there were so many amazing moments in that game. You know, I've rewatched it again and you pick up things that you don't see the first time, and boy, it was just really incredible. All sorts of things going on the ball and off the ball. Cheslin Colby, of course, with his amazing charge down of the Thomas Ramos conversion attempt. Jesse Kriel's defense at times was just outstanding, and some of those things you don't pick up maybe the first time around. So it was just a brilliant game. But what really got me excited in that game about South Africa was their game plan, their game management, their emotional intelligence, the way they play rugby here. And it was a great game from a player's point of view, because if you're two coaches like Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus standing in the stands, or sitting in the stands, watching your players go about that game plan, you would have been very proud of them, because they probably executed it pretty much exactly to plan, and I think they did a really tremendous job. And we saw also the results of that bench selection and that bench split, having Andre Pollard, Faf de Klerk and Willie Leroux to come on at that particular time of the game and just add another dimension. And boy, what a masterstroke that was. I just think it was an all-round wonderful performance from South Africa, both on the field and off the field as well. Now, we've had a bit of light rain falling here in Cancun this morning, and it could be the case on Saturday night as well at the Stade de France, where rain is expected to come tumbling down. Now, does this give one team an advantage over another, or does it mean that we need to come up with a new strategic plan on how we play the game? And it's probably a little bit of both. So I think South Africa are going to be looking at how they can take on the English in this type of game. But I think South Africa's got enough weapons across the field to be able to do the job on England. It's going to be a matter of how much ball England get in this game. But as I said, in this video I'm going to focus on the South African team and some of the things that I think might be going on there. And when the teams are announced, I'm going to make another video with my full predictions, talking about some of those players that have been selected, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. But for now, I just want to talk about how South Africa is probably preparing for this game and what they might come up with some potential selections. Now, I think the two interesting things for me in both of these semi-finals this weekend is that you've got both probably New Zealand and South Africa who are going to have to be guarding a little bit against complacency. And don't get me wrong, when I talk about that word complacency, I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm saying they just need to be aware of it and make sure that they've got their teams on point, ready to go against their respective opponents this weekend. And I'm sure South Africa will be ready to go, there's no doubt about it. Now the big thing for me is selection, and what are the Springboks going to go for? Well, one thing that I'd like to see this weekend is I'd love to see Andre Esterhuizen back in the South African team. I think he was playing really well in the Rugby World Cup. Probably hasn't got as many chances as he deserves, but boy, South Africa's got a whole host of riches when it comes to those backlines and backline players and inside centres in particular. So Esterhuizen's found it quite difficult to get into these big games, but I'd like to see him back into this game, and I'd also probably like to see Canan Moodie at centre as well. And this might be an opportunity for Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus to rest those players that had a huge game against France last weekend. I think both Damien Dialandi and Jesse Creel were absolutely knocked around and smashed around in that game, and I think their tanks were pretty well empty. So this might be a good opportunity for the coaches to give Moodie and Esterhuizen a go. I think they can do the job against England, no doubt. And as I've said in previous videos about the Springboks, I'm pretty excited about Canan Moodie at centre. I think he's a very good option, and the more games he gets there, the better he looks. So I think that could be a really good option. Let me know what you think, my friends from South Africa. Do you think that Moodie and Esterhuizen are likely to start in that centre pairing in this game against England on Saturday? And then what's likely to happen at halfback and first five for the Springboks? Well, I think Manny Lebok has to get another run. I think he's the general of this team now, and I think the confidence that was shown in him starting against France really nailed it for me, and he's really able to get the Springboks backline working, but he's also able to manage the game. It's not just about igniting the backline, it's about managing the game. His general kicks in play are very good. He can do that kick over the top, he can do that kick pass. He's got a good long strategic kick on him as well, and if need be, ball in hand and through the backline. So I think we'll probably see Manny Lebok starting this game. Now at halfback, what do the South African coaches do here? I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't know if it's going to be Faf de Klerk or whether it's going to be Cobus Reinhardt. It was a great play by the coaches to put Cobus Reinhardt in there against France in the starting 9. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do again this weekend. They may use Reinhardt because they may look for that darting run around the base of the rucks and mauls and the scrums. And if South Africa are looking at pushing forward through their forwards, doing quick picks and rolls and then getting the ball out wide, I think Cobus Reinhardt is the right solution for that. If Faf de Klerk comes in, we're probably going to see more kicking, aren't we? So I don't know whether that's going to be a ploy that South Africa uses in this game, because their option then is to put the ball down deep into English territory and use their outside backs to get down and put pressure on and try and set up set pieces. So that could be something that South Africa does as well. I think that set piece play is going to be absolutely important. I think the Springboks forwards are going to have the mettle over England slightly, so I think that's going to allow them to set up this game if they get that forward dominance. Going to be interesting if it's a wet ball and we've got greasy conditions, because I think that's going to dictate a lot of the play. I think a lot of us are expecting and assuming that England are going to play the kicking game in this game, so therefore that leaves South Africa open to a plan of either using that strategic kicking option, putting the ball up for their forwards to go and dominate in set piece, or trying to put the ball out wide and using the lights of an Esterhuizen or a Moodie to get up over the advantage line and get some line breaks against the English defence. So it's going to be really interesting to see what strategy the Springboks use around that particular team selection. Now in the forwards for the Springboks, what changes are we likely to see there, do you think? I think we might see Marvin Orie coming into this game, and again I think the likes of Etzebeth and Mostart really had a tough game against France, and having a week off if they were to get through to the final and play the All Blacks or Argentina. I think Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus want their A-team ready to go and firing. So it's going to depend, that short turnaround of only a week for this game and the big intensity that went into that game, not just physically but also emotionally against France. I think that's going to have a lot to do with the selection of the Springboks team to play against England. So yeah, Marvin Orie probably coming in there. I think we'll see the likes of Oxenechea on in the starting 15 this week as well. Whether or not Stephen Kitsoff starts, Dion Faure I think is going to be on there as a member of the starting 15. And I think we'll see Dwayne Vermeulen there as well in the starting 15 this weekend. So how does South Africa beat this English team? Well, England haven't been beaten, of course, at this Rugby World Cup. They're the only team going into the semi-finals that has not been beaten, so that's one thing they've got to look at. The second thing is they can look at those games that England played, and you'll see against Fiji in particular that when that ball is used in an open style out wide, then the English defence can look a little bit vulnerable. So I'm sure the Springboks are going to be looking at their ability to crack open the English defence out wide. And when I say out wide, it may be through the centres that they're able to do that. So by having an Esterhuizen and a Moody, and they're two different types of players that really excite me. You've got Andre the Giant there at inside centre. He's got that ability to crash up and hit the gain line, but he's also got the ability to get through the gain line as well and then offload to either a flank forward, Peter Steph-Toy coming through, or one of his wingers coming in to take the ball. So there's that option for South Africa. And then if Moody plays at outside centre, you've got the speed and the pace where he's able to connect with the outside wingers as well, and even the fullback. So expect, I think, Damian Willemse to start this game for South Africa. I think they're going to need his type of talent at fullback in this game. And again, if he's going to be part of the attacking option for the Springboks in this game, I think it's going to be a very good one. Or could we see Canan Moody out on the wing? That's another option that could unfold for this particular game as well, and giving Cheslin Colby or Kurt Liarance a rest in this game, which I think one of those two guys would probably appreciate that as well. Yeah, so there's plenty of options for South Africa in this one, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to see that rugby intelligence come into this game again, and the Springboks are going to come in with a plan to be able to win that first 20 minutes of this game. They're going to want to get forward domination, so then they can play the game the way they want to play it, and they'll see how the game unfolds. And I think that's the other thing that the Springboks team is really good at, is they're really good at reading the game and seeing what they need to do to move forward in the game. And I think they learned a lot from that game against Ireland in that respect, and we saw that against France, didn't we? We saw how they adapted to the French coming back, and they were able to hold on there in the last few minutes of the game. So I think in this game they're going to set the platform in that first 20 minutes. They're going to want to get their forwards getting forward domination in terms of winning set pieces, winning the breakdown. That's going to be a huge part of this game, as it has been throughout this Rugby World Cup. And then once they've got that in place, I think we'll see the Springboks' true strategy come over. So I think expect some box kickings, expect some kicking in general play to put the English under pressure. If it's going to be a wet ball, it's going to be difficult to contest that. We saw how effective it was against the French. Why are the English any different? I think that's going to put some doubts in the English mind as well. So I'm sure in training this week, the English are going to be pummeling themselves with high ball kicks and receiving those and practicing, because I think they're going to get an onslaught of that from South Africa, particularly if we've got wet conditions to deal with on Saturday night. Now, another thing that's going to be really interesting for me in this game is how is the bench going to be used? Are we going to see the 7-1 come back again? Or are we going to see something more like we saw against France with the 5-3? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw the 5-3 again. And I think that worked really, really well for the Springboks against France. Although, I think in this game, we might see it happen a little bit later in the game. I thought that Jacques Nienaber pulled the ripcord pretty early in the game against France. And I think that's because they wanted to see the impact that Faf de Klerk, Andre Pollard and Willie Leroux had in that particular game. And they wanted Andre Pollard to control that last 20-25 minutes of that game. But I think against England, it might be a little bit different. I think we might see the bench being held off a little bit longer from the back's point of view if they decide to go with that 5-3. But who knows, we might get a 6-2, we might even get a 7-1 again, because I'm sure the Springboks are going to want to dominate the English in the forwards. And if they can get the English forward tank really running down in that last 20 minutes, then they've got a good chance of running over top of England in the last 20 minutes of this game. Okay, here's one for my South African audience. I'd like to know from you, how do you think England could actually win this game? What do you think is the combination they need to put together to overcome this South African team? I know the majority of you are going to say it's impossible for England to win this game, but if you were sitting in Steve Borthwick's position, what coaching strategy would you put together for your team? I'm just interested to know if you want to drop a comment around that one. Okay, that's it for this short video looking at the South African opportunities for this weekend in their semi-final against England on Saturday night. Love to hear your comments as usual, so please drop those in the section below and I'll get to those as soon as I possibly can. I'll be back again soon making videos about the selections of the two teams in this particular game, as well as the All Blacks against Argentina, going into a little bit more depth on what players to look out for, an update on the conditions in Paris for both Friday and Saturday night, and giving you my final thoughts around the semi-finals for this weekend. Until then, stay well everybody, stay safe out there, and remember to enjoy the build-up to this weekend's semi-final. They're going to be some awesome games, that's for sure. I'll be back again really soon. Until then, bye for now.